Hello everyone, welcome to another video tutorial on the CodeAngle YouTube channel. In today's video, I'm going to show you how to create email chips by making use of Angular 18. If you are new to the channel, make sure you like this video as well as click on the subscribe button for more awesome content. And without wasting much time, let's get straight into the action. As you can see, I already have my terminal opened and I have my project already compiled. So I'm going to head straight to Visual Studio Code. And within Visual Studio Code, just like the UI you can see on the screen over here, this is the HTML code that displays that form. Currently, it's just static HTML. There are no functionalities involved both in the HTML file as well as the app component.ts file. So if you want to get or follow along with this tutorial, you need to create a new Angular project. So what I'm going to do for you is I'm going to leave a link in the description box to the starter template of this short tutorial, so you can be on the lookout for that and then clone the repo for you to be able to follow along. Now you should be aware that we're making use of Bootstrap 5, which I have the link in the index.html file in our Angular project. You can see the link to the Bootstrap 5 CDN. So this CDN helps us to make use of the several Bootstrap 5 classes, which is why we have a form on the page that doesn't look like way fantastic, but it's good enough to do what we want to do in terms of the user interface. So with that, we can now proceed to the next step of this tutorial. So the first thing I'm going to do is within the text area tag, I'm going to create a keydown.enter event handler. This is because anytime we type into the form and then we press the enter button, the functionality is meant to push the email tag to the bottom of the form. So to do that, we need to make use of the keydown.enter tag. So let's do that. So I'm just going to make use of a parenthesis and then I'm going to say keydown and then .enter. Then we can give this particular event handler a name. So I'm going to call it on tag set keydown and then it's going to have a parenthesis at the end. So we need to create this within our TS file. So I'm just going to head to the app component.ts file. Remember, we're using the default component in our Angular tutorial. So by default, Angular creates two starter templates for you, which are the app component.html and the app component.ts file. So within this app component.cs file, I'm just going to paste that particular function and then I'm going to open a bracket. So now we have the function sets in our app component.ts file. What I want to do next is anytime we type into the form, I want to ensure we are having access to the values within this input field in our console. So I want to log the values into the console. So to do that, I need to create two variables above. The first one is going to be called tag set and the second one is going to be called tag. And I'm going to explain further what these two variables are going to do. So to create the tag set variable, I'm going to type in the tag set variable and then I'm going to give it an input type of string because it's going to be a string, and then the second one is tags. This is going to be an array of string because each chip is going to be within an array. So we're going to make it an array of string, and to do that, all you need to do is just to give it this square bracket is equals to the square bracket. So we have an error here that says it has no initializer. I mean, you could either use the exclamation mark to get rid of that error or the question mark. I think both characters helps to get rid of that particular error. So now these two variables are what we need to display our set of tags within an array. So the first one is just to take the strings and the second one is to push whatever is within this tag set string into this tags array. So how do that work? So let's try to see that in action. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a condition that says if this dot tag set is equals to empty or this dot tag set is equals to null, then we want to return. Before I proceed, I'll have to console log the tag set variable, but before we do that, we need to make use of the forms module in Angular. So we need to import that up in the import array. So I'm just going to import forms module. Okay, IntelliSense is not working, so we need to import it manually. So I'm just going to say import forms module from @Angular/forms. So with that imported, we can now make use of ng model within the text area. So within the HTML, we can now make use of the banana in a box as it's sometimes called. So I'm just going to have this square brackets and then the parenthesis, and then I'm going to say ng model is equals to, so we need to name our form, the variable within the component, which is tag set, that holds the strings we want to log into the console. So I'm just going to say tag set, and with that we can now try out the console.log. So I'm going to save everything we've done so far, and our project is already compiled in the terminal. I'm going to head straight to the browser, open up the console by clicking on inspect and selecting console. So let's type something into the input field. So I'm just going to type some random characters, and I'm going to press enter, and for some reason it's not getting logged into the console, and this is simply because I never called console.log. So down below we just need to do that, and I'm going to say console.log this dot tag set. I'm gonna save, and let's head back to the browser and then type in some random characters once more and press enter. You can see we now have the values in the console. Fantastic. So what we want to do next is, every time we, like I said, we press the enter key, we want to push them into an array, and we already created a variable for that called tags. So I'm going to clear the console.log now that we are having the values in the console. So what I'm going to do next is to say this dot tags, which contains the variable for our array. So I'm going to say this dot tags dot push, and then I'm going to push the values of the tag sets into the tags. And then once this is done, I'm going to set the input fields to empty. So every time the user presses enter, the values will not remain inside the input field. It's going to be empty, because currently if I type into the input field and I press enter, you can see we still have the values. We don't want that behavior to happen. So to get rid of that behavior, we need to set it back to empty. So to do that, we can just say this dot tag set is equals to empty. So I'm going to save, and let's see what happens this time around. I'm going to type in random characters, and you can see the input field is cleared up. And probably we want to console log the tags to see the value of the tags if they have been pushed into the array. So maybe down below this dot tag set, I can just say console.log this dot tags. I'm going to save, and once again let's type some numbers this time around. 1 2 3 4, enter. You can see it's within the array and it's been cleared away from the form. Let's type in 5 6 7 8. If we press enter, you can see we now have 2 values inside the array. We have 2 items in our array. So that means we're able to push the values in the array. So the next thing we just want to do is loop through this array and then display the values below the form for each chip. So let's work on that next. So to do that, we need to head back to the index.html or app component.html tag, pardon me. And another thing you should know is within the index.html, we have the CDN for font awesome. If I'm not wrong. Yes, you can see we have a script tag that contains for font awesome, because we need the font awesome icon for when we want to, because apart from adding the chips on the form, we want to create a functionality where you can delete or cancel out some of the chips or the items within the array, as the case may be. So we need an icon to be able to do that. Now let's go about our business with that. So first thing, I want to create some a couple of divs. We have the div that contains the chip as well as the cancel icon. So let's just create a div, and it's going to have a class of chip as well as a class of me-2, which stands for margin right in Bootstrap 5. So within this tag, we can have icon, create the eye. So I'm just going to create the eye tag, and I'm going to give it a class of fa-times-circle. That's a circle icon that shows the cancel icon. I'm going to give it a margin top of 2, and then let's press enter. So those are the classes for our icon, and I'm just going to give it a default, a static class or a static text. Probably I'm going to call it ddd@gmail.com, a sort of static email, and this should be outside of the I tag. I'm going to cut it off and paste it below the I tag. And I think the art character is giving us an error, so I'm just going to remove the art character, and then I'm going to save, and let's see how the UI looks. As you can see, we now have the first chip, but you know, this is kind of static. It's not coming from the form. And I want the icon to be red. Let's give it a color of red. So to do that, I can just make use of the inline style and just give it a color of red, and I want the cursor to be pointed, to be a pointer anytime we hover over the chip. So let's save once more and see. So you see, when we hover over the cancel icon, then the cursor becomes a pointer. I think this looks really good. So let's loop through the div, because right now we want to display the tags from our array. You remember we already created the array, so I'm gonna make use of the @4 block. So I'm gonna say @4, I'm gonna say tag of the name of our variable that holds the array is called tags. So I'm gonna call the track keyword, which enables Angular to track each item in the array, and I'm gonna call the index as well. So I'm gonna open a bracket and I'm gonna wrap everything within this bracket, and then I'm gonna call the @empty block as well. So I'm gonna say @empty, and probably we just want to display an empty div if there are no tags on the page. So as you can see, we have let's tag @4 tag of tags. Then I think we can now get rid of this static test and just pass in the tag this way, because the tag now contains the tags in the array. So let's save, and by default the empty block should kick in because we don't have any item inside the array. But when we start typing in, you can see we now have items inside the array. That means we are able to create the email chip right now. You can see probably instead of typing in these random characters, we should probably start typing the email to make it more realistic. But before we do that, I want to integrate the cancel functionality. So anytime you click on this cancel icon, they disappear from the array, they get removed from the array. So to do that, we're gonna head back to our app component.cs file, and I'm gonna create the function to handle that. We're gonna call it drop tag, and then it's going to take in a variable or an argument called index, and it's going to be a type of any. And within this function, we can say this dot tags, which contains our array dot splice, and then we're gonna pass in the index, and then we're gonna pass in the number of items we want to remove, which is 1. Splice is just a default JavaScript method that helps us to manipulate an array. So let's save. Before we save, we need to call it within our I tag, because it's going to be a click event. I'm gonna make use of a click event, and I'm gonna paste it in and then open up a parenthesis. This is where we now need to pass in the index so that it knows the particular item of the array to delete. So we can save everything we've done so far and head back to the page, and let's type in an email. Let me type in my email, thecodeangle@gmail.com, and if I press enter, you can see we have thecodeangle@gmail.com. Then probably we want to pass in another email. Let's say thecodeangle@thecodeangle.com, which is another email of mine. Let's press enter. So let's delete one of these chips. I'm gonna delete one of these chips. Let's see if it works. As you can see, it works. So we're able to delete the chip. We're able to add the chips as well. So that's it for this tutorial. I just thought I should create a functionality regarding this. You might want to need it for any of your projects. Probably you are working on an email service or something, and you need resource on something like this. So I thought I should come up with this tutorial. So thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again in the next one.